outstanding new young writers. All four of the writers you'll be hearing tonight were in my advanced poetry class the fall of '99. And they've all continued since then to work individually and to continue their collective discussion about poetry and fiction through a writers group that they formed. This class was a really special class. President Cully, the president of Berry, came to visit the class at Nathan's invitation, and he described the group as truly a once-in-a-career group of students, and that really wasn't an exaggeration. So I'm very glad that you could be here to hear their really wonderful work tonight. Our first reader is Trudy Henson. Trudy is a rare combination of intellectual and creative talents. She's both serious and passionate about her work as a poet and as a reader, to which her record of a perfect 4.0 in English and writing courses testifies. Trudy has won numerous awards in her college career, including the Eleanor B. North Creative Room Scholarship, 2 Hammond Poetry Awards, the Alice B. Wingo Essay Award for Work of Literary Criticism, and 2 Academy of American Poets Awards. She has participated in a number of readings, both locally and at last year's AWP conference in Albany, and has published some half-dozen poems and ramifications. Whether her subject is directly personal or not, what drives her work is a powerful intellectual as well as emotional engagement. It isn't surprising then that in addition to creative writing, Trudy is also very interested in the study of contemporary international literatures as well as literary theory, a subject for which she has a rare aptitude. And perhaps this double accomplishment in part explains her recent stunning success, her acceptance into the highly selective graduate program of the University of Virginia. She'll begin study there this fall. Please welcome Trudy Henson.
Thank you. The first poem I'm going to read tonight is sort of appropriate, I hope. It's called Ars Poetica. And now the poets seated round table are talking of their first language memory, the patterns of letters like runes they would read, or words formed by their father's voice at night before dreams. The first word picked off a page of otherwise unintelligible scribblings, the. Fascinated by the unending stream of them words slowly filling their universe, how could they not become poets? I have no first memory of reading, that moment of characters turning from foreign to familiar, a voice that melted the lines into one stream of rolling sound. I only remember second grade, the first time I couldn't read, a migraine turning black lines into suddenly squiggly and disappearing starbursts whenever I tried to focus, crescents of pain erasing what I'd come to know as words. My teacher didn't understand I could not read. My panic as my world dissolved into those black splotches of amoeba blankness, thought I was being recalcitrant, impossible. Even now, I remember the first fear, loss of words into white. Even now, when called to speak suddenly, or expected to find the room combination that will fit together neatly as ancient puzzles and form poetry, wilting and trippingly off the tongue. Even now I know that moment, when the world fuses into blurred lines, then slides defiantly out of my vision. Next one is called Being Born a Woman, which actually came out of a long and complicated theory that I'm not going to go into that basically said that women were outside of language due to the very nature of their gender. And so this is my reaction to that, called Being Born a Woman. Being born a woman and so out of language, I feel the translation waiting in your eyes of my hips, hands, my jagged breathing, forced exhale. The translation of my own signifiers signifying, until layers and layers of transmutation render mute what my skin would say to yours. Language of our bodies speaking synapse to one another, unambiguous breath, touch that knows no rigidly formed letters. I form words, utterances, close my eyes and speak. lengthening my body into lines of convoluted locutions, losing the nape of your neck, valley of my spine to perfect geometrics, constantly framing within alphabets of careful language, humming throat of my words, and I, so appealing when words are put well together. It is your silence, my silence, our slow, mute minutes, which defy your pen resolutely, my eyes which close in unconscious rebellion to your questioning paper, my lips which refuse to become signified. Curving bone of hip pressed against you, I used to bring back the worthless commune of bodies, tracing hieroglyphs of desires to find truth and pungency, smells that elude naming, black evenings made thick with fog dissolving forms. I hold you there, seeing you best in this darkness, your name spoken by the flush of my skin. The next one is called 6 Ways to Raise a Living. And this is written in sections, and there's only 4 sections for which I was mercilessly ridiculed. However, there's 4 sections, and so I'll just read the sections. They're numbered. 6 ways to raise a living. 2 seasons call your daemon. The first, when spindles of branches give way to white blossoms. The second, when branches, bare, are thread with electric stars to make shadows from light. At night, blossoms become angels' wings. Stars, fierce embers of prayer. Death is simple. The warrior makes one cut and is done. Blood flows crimson from his handiwork. There is no need for a second. Death, one line of knowable boundaries, divisions even lungs understand. But pain is splintered glass, shattered sand with crystal edges wedging beneath the skin, a webwork of incisions defying clear geometry. Angels, their white wings kissing, briefly wed with death with light, then fall noiseless or fly away, lit by the embered filigree of another season of memory. Trees stretch their quiet limbs, bear witness to mute miracles, then slumber. Your daemon dances a riotous ballet, glinting sword, glass slippers. 4. If there's an aesthetic of loss, if beauty is more than what eases our sleep, make it stone, the color of deserts before sun, blisters air into chimera, the first breath of snow-silver night catching the throat into silence before prayers burn through the frost. In that split-second stillness, I'm asking you, break me in clean lines. My last poem is called Eulogy, and I suppose that's appropriate too. However, sometimes you meet people that inspire you and feed you and fuel you, and for me, in the past 2 years, that's what our little group has done. And a part of that group, who will not be reading tonight, and who has already graduated, is my roommate, Jillian Crumpleton, and basically I would attribute to her most of my inspiration this year. And this poem is a direct result of a conversation, and actually many conversations, that we've had. Eulogy. This too is a litany for things lost. Practicing solitude, I went looking through steeled clouds and city-blown leaves for some answer I imagined was etched in the air tonight, like some promise of magic to be unfurled. But evening turned and took her secrets elsewhere. Left alone, I sat on my porch collecting tired leaves and studied the sky, ruins of cumulus prophecies. Looking at me, she asked, "Do you remember falls from youth, when autumn and blue skies seemed from down of yellow leaves? Even then I knew time pushed. Even then time jostled me forward." This evening is about nostalgia. Grant 20 minutes to your fondest memory and never think on it again. What begins as a dream becomes the ache that wakes us from our dreams. What stirs the sleeping feathers of our mind teaches flight and fall and weightlessness and wind. When we wake, we don't know what from, the living or the dead. When we wake, we remember faintly where we might have been. Maybe the rustling of wings, or the smell of the air, or the humid taste of dew leaving sky to fall and gather at ground. Laughter clean as clouds on our tongues. Snow falling, six-sided on our skin, melting into pure light and trailing liquid crystals to earth. Wait, there are no mysteries cloaked in the thunder's heads. Perhaps we chose to leave. Perhaps we were flung. Thank you.
Our next reader is Scott Smith. Deja vu. Same thing happened last time.
I'm camouflaged.
published work of both genres and ramifications, and was one of this year's winners of the Hammond Poetry Award. Scott will graduate from Barry in December. A serious reader as well as writer, Scott is known in the group as the Master Explicator for his highly insightful reading of others' work. As a writer, Scott's work demonstrates his sophisticated reading of the world around him. He combines the serious and the comic, creating an often satirical tone and a voice that is uniquely his own. As Scott has written, sarcasm, like male pattern baldness, runs in the family. His early, maybe not the best choice of quotes given.
That's what I get for turning my finger card.
His early education of watching He-Man and Thundercats and his job at the comic book store also appeared to have paid off after all. Whatever the influences, we can be glad we have the work. Please welcome Scott Smith.
How y'all doing? I would like to start off with a story. I've not had much experience reading my stories aloud, so this is an experiment. Thank you for being the mice. This story is called A Night with the Wind, and it's totally fictional. I promise. Wind showed up in the driveway unannounced around 11, which was unusual for Wednesday night. I was pretty sure I knew what she was there for, though, when she made a beeline for the refrigerator first thing. "What kind of beer you got?" Her voice floated back through the frigid air, wafting out of the open fridge. The usual, cheap American stuff. She produced 2 bottles from the fridge, closing the door with the butt that her jeans had situated to near perfection. "Why, Andrew Griffin, you can't afford anything else," she jibed, stressing her already southern accent in her best Scarlett O'Hara voice. "Well, what I make at school? Please. Is this where I wipe my ass with expensive beer labels?" Grim returned my green reply with a smile around. She slid into a chair across from me at the kitchen table, and I motioned for her to send over half of her amber cargo. She feigned surprise. "What?" "Beer." "These are both for me." Gwen clasped them against her chest protectively. Her hair reached one of the long necks and stuck there, the condensation adhesive. The line between bottle and tress disappeared. She was trying not to smile as she held the jug as long as possible, but I could see the edges of her lips curling slightly, like the pages of a well-loved book. I gestured again and she complied, sliding the bottle across the table for me in the style of an Old West barkeep. Gwen and I had known each other since first grade, and if not for having been placed in separate kindergarten classes, would have undoubtedly been acquainted even before that. I met her on the playground one day, early in the year. She was on the jungle gym, wearing and looking. Not out of sexual or malicious desire, mind you, but because it was funny on the cartoons. I thought, why shouldn't it be now? Despite that less than sterling introduction, Gwen and I had been fairly close ever since, with peaks and valleys like any other relationship. There's always plenty for us to talk about. You remember that school field trip we took in 7th grade up at the park? Gwen asked. No need for a name to be attached to the park. There was only one in the county. The one where Debbie Raditz danced on one of the picnic tables as she fell off and broke her arm? I barked a short laugh. Yeah, that was funny. Who the hell sneaks beer into the park with 13-year-olds? I heard it was her mom. Her mom and mine were friends for a while. I think I would have heard something about that somewhere. Yeah, your mom is kind of talkative. I raised an eyebrow. Hey, stones and glass houses. This is still her house after all. Even though she's been gone since the divorce. Dad too. Sorry. It's all right. I didn't disagree, did I? We both chuckled. I procured 2 more beers from the fridge to replace the drained bottles on the table. Whatever happened to Debbie anyway? Gwen shrugged. I heard about 6 months ago she was engaged. Probably married by now. She's quiet for a minute, taking a sip from her beer. You ever think about it? Fine gift. A giggle. You know, getting married. Not really. I figure it'll happen when it happens. Besides, usual progression is girlfriend, fiance, wife. I gestured in a compartmentalizing way. I'm not even on step 1. I took a swallow of beer. Why? You asking? I smiled. Gwen giggled again. No, silly. Uncrossed the fingers that had somehow entwined themselves. Damn. What Gwen didn't know was that I had a big crush on her since we were 6 or so. That makes him horrifyingly romantic, but don't get the wrong idea. I wasn't pining for or anything. We've still got our pact though, right? She continued. The one with Satan? Yep, one go to each knee moon. Gwen almost spit out the beer she'd been holding in her mouth. Her slender shoulders shook as she tried to suppress the laughter enough to keep from spraying me. Damn it, Griff, she laughed after swallowing. Don't do that while I'm drinking. I almost spilled beer. That's alcohol abuse. She kicked at me playfully under the table. I meant the fact where we would marry each other if we were 40 and single. This hadn't come up in a while, and I resigned the idea to mere idle, well, drunken chatter. Now it came up again while we were both more or less sober, and I wondered how strongly she might actually mean it, even if it was really cliche. Don't you think it's a little early to worry about that? I sidestepped. Got to keep my secret identity covered. I just started buying these. I shook the beverage slightly. Last year. Well, buying them legally. I grinned. That was applied. I watched the muscles in Gwen's neck ripple as she threw her head back to get the last drops of the elixir of the tie from the bottom. You doing anything tonight? She asked after a noise of satisfaction. Just this. Let's go to the bowling alley, she said, throwing the bottle into the kitchen trash as she passed, expecting me to follow. Our hometown is so small, the biggest thing to do is hang out at the bowling alley. It's not like there's any competition to top my spot. Even if you don't bowl and don't want to, there's an arcade for the kids and a bar for everyone else. The latter, of course, drew our attention. What kind of town only has one freaking form of entertainment? I posed a grin after about 8 continuous colons. Welcome to rural Georgia. She raised a beer and salute. A young entrepreneur like myself was stopped by Gail laughing from my companion. You said manure. I laughed. No, I didn't. She nodded emphatically between stopping giggles. Well, I guess I did. Shit. Unconsidered fun resulted in another round of drunken hysterics. Lots of things are funny when you've got 3 sheets in the wind, at least getting there. One thing that doesn't fit into this category is seeing an X, however. Gwen's eyes shrank into slits of irritation as she noticed Tommy Bonaparte, a guy I knew of in high school, across the building. He saw her too, apparently, and started towards us. Shit, Gwen cursed, instantly more sober. What? My ex, T-Bone. I chuckled. T-Bone? T-Bone? No thanks, I'm full of beer. Whee! Smart ass. Gwen emphasized this from the elbow to my ribs. I know one that said ow, however, in the same motion that wrapped her arm around mine. Play along. What's up, y'all? T-Bone asked as he reached auditory range. What's up, dog? I returned with a nod. Gwen nodded and glared. Good to see you, Gwen, T-Bone said. Haven't heard from you in a while. Assholes are on the bottom of my to-call list. Sorry. Was the acidic reply. Yeah, well, he mumbled. You know Griff, T-Bone? Asked Gwen. He reached out and taken my hand. We had a couple of classes together in high school, right? Yeah, man. I have no idea who the hell you are. You get me another beer, sweetheart? One asked. Sure thing, darling, I said with mildly sarcastic tone, as though we were both in on a private joke. Gwen's lips pursed ever so slightly as her eyes bored into my face. I just looked at her for a moment, perplexed. Oh, right. I turned and coughed down the deal without further hesitation. You two dating? T-Bone asked. You could say that, retorted Gwen. She took a swig off the beer that was past her way, and she set it down pretty hard. Watch my beer, Griff. I was dumbfounded again. Why did she have to come up with this complex plan while I was half lit? Where you off to? Got to take a piss? Yep. Be right back. Gwen took a step and turned sharply on her heel. She kissed me very quickly and lapped me on the cheek. Miss me, she stated, then continued toward the bathroom, walking that wall. What the hell? I thought. What was that all about? Oops, don't look stunned. Play along. Small talk. You playing football in college? I asked T-Bone. I thought I remembered seeing a letter jacket on that massive frame in high school. No, just working, replied the ex-jock. Man, he's ex-everything tonight. Sucks to be him. How long y'all been together? Think, Griff. Oh, you know, a while. I don't keep up. That's the search department. Seems like forever, though. You know what I mean? I added a chuckle to drive home the pretense of chauvinism. I hear you, man, was a cheerful response. I knew you'd eat that up. We dated for a few weeks, he volunteered after a pause. Broke up about 3 weeks ago. I guess it was my fault. She caught me out with another girl. Oh, and I'm interested in your side because... So, you got a piece yet? T-Bone asked out of the blue, smirking. No, too offended to think of a cover story. Really? He smirked widely. He was testing me. Well, I'm kind of old-fashioned. Ex-job expression began to sour in disbelief. I screwed this up, Grim would be so pissed. Besides, if you work up to it slowly, I said, leaning toward him spiritually, you get to do just about anything right with that. T-Bone guffawed. Really? I've never heard that. He actually believed me. Idiot. A hand slid into mine from behind, and I tried not to look startled as Gwen made her reappearance. I could get used to this. Miss me? Her voice dripped with saffron. Always, I answered. Anyway, I just thought I'd stop by, T-Bone was saying. See what was up with you, Gwen. Guess I'll get back to my game. I'm sure you're missed. It's amazing how quickly Gwen's voice went from sweet to venomous. T-Bone ignored it. Good to meet you, Griff. See y'all. He shuffled toward the crisp explosions of falling pins. Yeah, right. Gwen glared at his back until it was out of eyeshot. Her eyebrows were drawn so close together by her scowl, I thought they were going to get into a fight. Come on, Griff, let's get out of here. She started to pull me towards the door. But my beer, I whined, only half joking. Bring it along, let's go. It's only after we'd gotten into Gwen's truck that I realized she hadn't let go of my hand until we reached the tailgate. I've been thinking about, I shouted suddenly over the music blaring out of Gwen's radio. What? I started again, but Gwen had turned off the radio before I reached the third word. I've been thinking, I said again in a normal tone of voice, about what just happened at the bowling alley. Yeah? I'm not sure I like being used as an alibi or whatever. It's demeaning. Gwen shot me a perplexed look. I mean, I don't like being misrepresented just to piss some guy off. It makes me feel used. Hold that thought. This came in conjunction with the massive deceleration and a sharp right turn into the parking lot of Possum Mountain Baptist Church. The church door was only left a few hours ago, and the area seemed as if no one ever visited it. Gwen pulled the truck off the asphalt lot in front of the building and onto the gravel surrounding the sides of the reception hall. The very edge of the orange ring cast by the streetlights, she put the truck in the park. I gave her an inquisitive look. We want to have a serious conversation. We need to stop, she clarified. Who said anything about having a serious conversation? Oh, come on, Griff. You were in serious conversation mode. You could tell by your voice. Anyway, I said, returning to the subject, just don't do that again, okay? It makes me feel uncomfortable. Why? It just does. Because I feel like a tool. Gwen sighed. I'm sorry. I didn't mean it that way. I just wanted to piss T-Bone off. I never really told you about what went on with us, but it hurt me pretty bad. I got that from what he said. Gwen looked troubled. Hey, it's okay. I reached over and took her hand. I'm not mad about it. I just wanted you to know. Open communication and all. No, I shouldn't have done that. I wasn't thinking. Gwen leaned over and wrapped her arm around my neck. I've never done anything to hurt you. I know, I said, my voice muffled in her hair. But it's neutral. Gwen leaned back, her arms still in place on my shoulders. Your heart's beating like crazy. Just out of shape. She leaned forward again more slowly, her head tilted slightly, and I knew she was going to kiss me. For all these years, the moment seemed almost surreal. I could barely register the remnants of night's drinking still in her breath as she pulled back after a moment. Gwen smiled and put her hand on my chest just above my heart. Nope, must be me. I pulled her to me again and lost myself in the taste of beer. I opened my eyes to see the ceiling of Gwen's truck staring back at me. I raised my head from the back of the seat and looked out the windshield of the graveyard behind the church, barely visible in the streetlight's radiance. A bad omen, I believe in such things. Shit, I breathed. It wasn't a curse, simply a statement of disbelief. I absentmindedly stroked one of Gwen's bare knees, which were draped across my lap. The other hand was still held tightly in hers. What? She asked, her voice trailing up lazily from next to the steering wheel. Nothing, just thinking. Oh. A pause. Don't think too hard about things. This didn't sound good. What do you mean? I just need to be careful. What are you trying to say? That was just sex? Hey, don't overreact, she replied placidly. I'm just not sure what that was yet. Okay, I thought, this is not going to fall apart on me. It sure seemed like more of that to me. I know, she squeezed my hand. I could tell. Gwen paused. How long have you felt that way, Drew? A long time. Just never had the guts to tell you. Oh. We sat in silence for a few more minutes. I never thought it'd be like this. You know, in my truck in plain sight of a church. I imagined it'd be different. I felt my eyebrows rise. as I laid my head on her stomach. The confide from Cat and I had to curl into a fetal position to accomplish this. Gwen didn't answer, just started running her fingers through my hair. Your spine cannot be comfortable like that, commented Gwen after a while. It's not, but I'm not complaining. The ranging fingertips in my hair stopped moving. Let's get you home. The ride to my house was quiet. I was lost in thought. I suppose Gwen was too. She walked me to my door when we got there. I guess to say I had a good time tonight would sound right. I joked. Gwen smiled, still distracted. You want to come inside? No, she replied. I've got to get home so I can get up in the morning. Oh. Well, good night. I did have a good time. Me too, Griff. She leaned over and kissed me on the cheek. I'll call you in the morning. She turned to go. I shouted after her. You never call me. Gwen smiled broadly. She slid into the truck. I do now. I watched her drive off until she was out of sight, then went inside to wait for the morning. The end. I guess that'll be all for me.
Our next reader is Joe Gumby. Joe is a December graduate, and he also writes both fiction and poetry. Joe has also won creative writing awards while at Berry, including the Eleanor North Award. He has participated in a number of readings, and he has published work in Ramifications, including his story, Best Man with a Bull Float, which the Ramifications staff successfully defended against a strong attempt to censor it. His work, then, has also been a service to Berry as a community, helping to establish an important precedent for artistic freedom in Berry student publications. When I think of Joe as a writer, I think of a born storyteller, a creator of living characters with compelling voices and stories. His work, including his poetry, I think, speaks as a strong individual voice that makes you want to listen. Please welcome Joe Gumby.
Why do we love the people that we love? What is the nature of desire, and what is the difference between duty and individual calling? I think I was naive enough to believe when I first started writing that writing would answer these questions. And sometimes I think that I get an answer, but a lot of times I think that it only maybe clarifies the topic, but also makes it more difficult in the end because there are no clean, hard, and fast answers. But those are just things that I like to write about. And this first poem is always my dad's favorite. I wrote it my freshman year, and it's really simple, but I still like it. It's called For Ashley in the Spring. I cleaned up my room tonight. It was overdue. I put it off as long as I could. I picked up that brush with the black handle, the one you gave me. My fingers, too large to wedge between the bristles, were satisfied to hold on, while I pulled my hair out with some needle-nose pliers I borrowed to fix my Zippo. Only the hair I find is too light and long to be my own. I don't even know what's mine anymore. The second poem is also about women. It's the best thing to write about. But the title of it is Verbena, and not only is that a flower that grows in Mississippi, but it's also a William Faulkner story, Odor of Verbena. Being a flower, every woman has her own scent. First fragrance, hair, pollen, petals, beeswax, perfume from the Champs-Élysées. These tested with a secret smile that belies the knowledge of what lies underneath. Pistol, push of statement, sweat on shoulders, scent of stalk-reaching sun. Things felt, not processed. Savored in that tightness of the throat. Knowledge of earth flecked with mica, yielding from torn seeds, violent excess of youth. This next poem is one I wrote because it it seems that a lot of people, especially around last year when the whole millennium thing was coming up, really freaked out because it's like they wanted the world to end, because they want to know the limit of time. And it's kind of the old idea that in searching for something, you lose the path. And I did have a little epigraph at the top that was from the letters of Saint Jerome. I don't remember that exactly, but it was said, with the end of the world and the ever-approaching catastrophes. And this is the way that people would sign their letters in the year 999 because they thought the world was going to end then too. And so this is called the Poem from Memory. Planted for death, the long winter seeds must understand the way of the world, that being here in this place is no guarantee. What after revelation, the lonely hilltops barren, but for the faithful, who when departed will only then wonder, when did I begin to live? What did you miss, sad dreamer, on your way past warm, glowing eaves and lamplit lawns, on your way to the vision at the end of the street? Is your remnant torn for preservation the one that holds the pattern together? Or is your prophecy uttered for the chosen few a flight only from common sorrow? Back in the ordered turbulence of suburbia, oblivious to the chimera at the summit, young lovers spring outdoors, hurtling to the conclusion of the matter, knowing that there is no time in meantime, knowing the answer that is always present, mean time, mean time. This next poem is one that I've kind of reworked. And that's something that I like to do a lot, is come back to poems that I've written in the past and see how they apply to what I feel at the time. And, this one I've reworked, entitled 150 milligrams. Transcendence is such a dangerous thing. Distancing those moments of late nights spent lying on pavement from everyday concerns. Check stubs on the kitchen table, porcelain cups, coffee grounds. Be careful when heart leaps from hot earth and brush your throat with leopard aching. Some night stars burn only for their love of making noise. Street lights that illumine the boundaries between suburban lawns also keep constellations in place, locating the perfect calm between desire and mystery. I wrote that poem the first time because when I was in high school, young romantics always go out and pine in the woods, but my place to pine away was on the street out in front of our house, and I loved it because you'd go out there in summertime with the cool breeze would blow, and the asphalt would still be hot, and lay there and just look at the lamps and try to see the stars through there and just wander my time away. But this next poem I wrote is it's only about 2 weeks old, and it's kind of the same thing, just kind of that bump we all get in. And this comes out of a game that Nate and I play where we come up with these one-liners that aren't so bad in and of themselves, but if they were in a specific context, they would be horrible. Like Nate's favorite is, just this once. You could be saying, well, I'll go fetch your pocketbook from the car just this once. Or you could be saying, well, I've had too much to drink, but I can drive home just this once. So, but it's kind of written in that surreal light on my way to the donut shack at 5 a.m. And the title of it is called Chekhov Over Donuts. My nights are infused with a great lack that utters a noise that cannot be the wind in the sash, even for its hoping. To be a great stillness, what is that? If being remains tied to a post, where is the oasis then? I am lean and my 40 days lag on still. The trees murmur in their discontent, and weeping is heard when the flies come here. The test came back. We regret to inform you, we appreciate your interest. Tomorrow they may call with the answer, but today my sadness is not great enough to carry. Corners of the building grow more brown as they lean and yearn, but still the postman will not come. The laundromat just before daybreak is a place of immense happiness, and Loveless will be glad to accompany you if only you could send them word. But the translator is demanding that you pay up front. This next poem is really short one. I like it a lot though because I wrote it at a time when I was thinking a lot about how things come back around in our lives. Someone is in our life and then things happen and change and then they come back in our life and it's just like you never left. A buddy of mine named Chrissy Elwell that we were good friends with. We got to be friends again this summer. I haven't seen her. She's been in California. We met up. It was really strange and wonderful. And I said, this is like that Ben Harper line where he says, some things never change and some things never stay the same. And she looked at me and she said, no, in a raspy voice, she said, some things never change. Some things never stay the same. But and that's also what this poem is about how do we say things like music says things, and how do we capture things in words that music can capture. Notes in stone. You make me want to uncover the music of my dreams, not for expulsion into iniquitous air, but rather that I could hum those quavers into taut chords beneath your ochre skin, words being only breath and mist, unrecoverable music of dreams, forgotten bars and a lost key. This next one is also about how we put words on things, how when we feel something or we want to say a word for it that will never really happen, but we're doomed to do that. It's called coming to terms. Some afternoons I wake up, place my foot on stonework and wonder, is today the day when I escape the jealousy of apples? Walking on sidewalks, the rain sees me standing in a puddle and passing says, have you known the tears in the door jam? I know a woman who is not me, I found. Her stomach chants the penance, non regretio. I need to remember this next time. Outside another's house, cars go by, but I wait for her. Her keys rattle with the insistence of a grocery list. I ask, are you afraid of the earth? She cannot finish this poem. Okay, then, fair enough. What does the phosphorence of midnight leaves mean for you? She says, somewhere in Ireland the rose blooms as we speak. She is sufficient. I follow her path to the sea, driftwood lies clinging to the floor it cannot relinquish. And next is another one about language again. And this one came about with a discussion that some of us had about the way words not only sound, but the way they feel. The words in your mouth are amazing. Little explosion in your tongue, the roof of your mouth, the way things phrase. Like, I would love to really be fluent in French. How wonderful would that be? How would they do that? But no, French, I love. Yeah. If I were to say the words slick, like mercury, would you coerce meaning from it, or would you imagine the way my tongue flitters on the roof of my mouth? Exactly like that. Now say, obsequious ennui, and see if I figure it out. Slim lines and curves, these words, running off a page quick to be caught on tongue tips push into loose strands of memory and cognition. You violate me like this. Every breath of words into adulterate air, public display of what could remain private, piercing temporal lobe to remember what opulent means, redolent mouth work, lactate words, first one then another, sometimes two at once, then spit them out for a fresh taste. Fixation on the oral art and divine power to speak words, slathered only on thigh. Dionysus torn to remind us that in the end, slick and undulate cannot remain on the vine, but must burst and tatter on the tongue's delight. And the allusion in that last line is to a Dionysus. That's probably my favorite person, or favorite, god in all of the mythology. Not to be confused with Bacchus, which is the Roman version. But in Greek mythology, Dionysus was the son of Zeus, and the Titans, who were the big bad dad of Zeus, got mad when they saw how beautiful Dionysus was, so they tore him and ate him. Well, the fastest, courageous, and always loyal messenger of the gods snatched his heart from the flames as the Titans were burning, and he took it to Zeus, and they recreated him from his heart. And Zeus ripped open his thigh and put Dionysus inside and grew the full horn. And even today, in many parts of Greece and Italy, and they have Dionysus is the god of wine and revelry, but to them it's so much more complicated, because to have ecstasy you must have terror. And I think that's an amazing concept. When we often forget in America where mass consumption just cares. We don't think about terror first. And in Greece and Italy today, when they stomp at the graves and the press, they say, Dionysus, we did not know. But there's a word in this next poem that I just discovered the other day. I'm so proud of myself. It's called dithyramb. It's also about Dionysus, because the song of these people are called dithyramb. It's a wild, irregular tribal song of people in Greece. But it's called Conjectures on Embodiment. I just finished it today. This one's for Jim and Bubba. Bubba couldn't be here tonight, but my two mentors for John Coltrane. Conjectures on Embodiment. We sat on the steps, speakers in the window, me reading liner notes, her trying to phrase things. She told me my love was searching for something perfect. I could only listen in anticipation of Coltrane's copper breath swelling from Earth's diaphragm, shaping the word embodiment. Or maybe just a cloud that looked like me. From Coltrane's liner notes to a word that I love supremely. Words, sound, speech, men, memory, thoughts, fears, and emotion, time, all related, all made from one, all made in one. One thought can produce millions of vibrations, and they all go back to God, and He cleanses them. It is Morocco, 1941. A Congo wind twists in frenetic patterns through sand sheen, then passes through a camel's throat, trading its almost essence of dust for the honking wail or burden that sends it towards the ocean. 20 years of blowing Atlantic waves finds it brushing down West 52nd Street between upturned collars and neon slivers of rain, until some cat sucks it into the village vanguard through currents plaid in nicotine and hash, hankering for the hot stage lights, and finally finding a home in Coltrane's horn, in the bellow and ball of sounds older than music, freed from 200 years of captive jungle air, sweltering into the stellar regions of loneliness, beyond things measured in terms of fidelity. Perhaps this is the geography of Mercury. Heat, conducting, loss. Maybe this is Miles' prophecy made manifest. Listening in cold fusion brass with the flesh of wind and wood. Maybe love should be like that too. A search through polyrhythmic chaos for the lyrical theme. I wish I could have told her. But that night outside the girls' dorm, Inglewood Cliffs and Greenwich Village seemed far away, and a dithyramb from 1962 had nothing to do with love or dust or explaining my epic desire. Thank you.
years, Nathan has served as editor of Ramifications. He was selected to give the poetry reading at the 1999 induction ceremony for the National Creative Society. He has been awarded the Eleanor North Creative Writing Scholarship and the Gordon Barber Memorial Poetry Award twice. He was our nomination for the AWP Intro Journals Project, as well as for the Bucknell Seminar for Younger Poets, for which he was selected as alternate. I have known Nathan for 3 years. I first met him when he came to my office in search of a poet with whom to share his writing and to begin a dialogue about poetry. From that first moment, I was impressed by his unusual commitment to his art, and I was soon to be impressed by the quality of his work as well. Over the past 3 years, Nathan has made amazing leaps in his artistic growth, so much so that in our recent Creative Writing Awards competition, Dana Curtis, our outside judge, wrote of Nathan, "This is the most talented undergrad poet I've ever read." I think in part, this growth and accomplishment has to do with the essential humanity in his work, which is combined with a real passion for language, for its ability to reveal to us our deeper selves, rather than the detritus of the merely anecdotal or confessional self. On the basis of this work, Nathan has been accepted to no less than 5 prestigious graduate creative writing programs.
Writing for my family, to my fellow writers, and all of my muses. And I want to dedicate this reading to Joe. And I don't think I ever would have taken writing as seriously as I do if it hadn't been for Joe. He just really inspired me, and some of our first dialogues were about poetry, and he really encouraged me to make poetry my vocation. So thanks, Joe. But the first poem I have is called Soma. I slipped past starless skin, tide on water's surface, and open eyes as body circuitry rides against drowning, diving in soft balls past fractured and shivering light, dust decaying above fast as skeletons of angels that hover suspended, marrow and calcite, thick shafts of white plumbing into murk where fish dart from filthy light as it thrusts its mass into rustic gray chambers. My finger counting your teeth as you sleep. In harsh winter lamplight, she would cut my hair, wet mass, nervous cord, falling across my shoulders, softly to slick floor. She's there waiting at water's surface when I awaken, whispering a question, what is your name in winter? And this next poem is called The Concept of Zero. She'd come this far trying to see how far the inertia of hunger could drive, names branded onto the aching tongue, leaving behind rain on the window panes, photographs of the dead, lists burnt into castles of ash that toppled into wind, fractals clouding sight, floating midair like skin that peeled off her back, at the epicenter where the dead fanned from the burn in slow whirls. She woke with the neon dream glow still lingering, outside the streets littered, light constructing new architecture. Morning came baroque, echoes closing the archway, vagary of speech given ring and closure. Horses in the field were lost among the birds. Mist, the only thing solid, their gradual turning, their heads descent to grass through cries that faded before they returned. The hoof lifted as if to step, let drop again. Stars rip open and burn away desire, fading like scars, eventual, precise. They arc out after the cut, shaped in figures like the Sanskrit you pin on your arm, gaps of light where the characters open, apertures of grief. Snap me open and I'm some phosphorescent green, pearly and shifting. In school, after peeling open the fish, we pinned its skin down, diagrammed its organs. The aching slip of its body broke no motion in this world, fins shivering beneath the vent as if it were folding itself whole again, as if it were a dream of itself. In dream, the fabric of the body is luminous, but even now I know the ache of work on the legs, the breath caught urgent in the bloody cartridge of lungs, the body within that rolls eyes back when the whole bone case shudders, that bows lips across teeth when we weep. An anger unlocks the marrow heavy in the bones, creeps along the traces of spine, locks the hand into tool. This is what gives the body. And this next poem I'd like to dedicate to Jill. It's called Imrama. And in Irish mythology, Imrama is the journey to the afterlife. Everyone has their own individual Imram, which is in the form of a map. So anyway, Imrama. I live encased in amber, half buried in earth, and lie looking through trees that branch into complex circuits like capillaries. At dusk, stars deepen in the well of night, opening as if flowers blooming, etching burnt halos of silence into a dark heaven. Every morning when I wake, a mirror reminds me of who I am. Your letters remind me of my name, Nathan, clean encased in consonants Hebrew and prophetic. Water washes decaying dream maps from my skin, serpentine rivulets tracing my body, delicate as string, finding their way to the drain through tunnels of rust, to fish hovering in sleep. When I was 12, swimming in a lake, I slid deep into brown water and lost my way. I let myself go, became sediment, looked to fish in their strange golden orbit to show me the way through that numb dark. In warm silence, limbs thrashing for solidity, I imagined myself the final star suspended in dawn sky, about to extinguish until I surfaced gasping air, continuing to burn. In the desert, the blood's violent inertia slows, space compresses the body, purgatory's desolate geography purges. Even now the word desire gathers in the darkness of my mouth and remains there, flesh bound, until the tongue's dull flame wills it spoken. Ever let the bridegroom fondle you. He will put his hand through the opening and will touch your body, and you will arise trembling and cry, I am lovesick. Returning, you ask me about the afterlife, the soul's elaborate escape, its flight from a body of earth and sediment. I told you that I'd like to believe in that silver emotion, the mind's inertia catapulted into some gray oblivion. I'd write you letters from the afterlife composed in a language of weightlessness, of earth turning in on itself, graves filling with water. Dear, when I found my body lying in shivering weeds at the bottom, in that endless greed of darkness, that silence transposed into space, I touched my cold face, touched the drawn red circles of grief on my chest, spaces to weep in, to enter silent, places holy and beautiful as the deep lines on your body that I traced after you woke. If the soul is, perhaps it's another body, made entirely of space and light. I wish that I had rent you open, climbed inside and eaten the tiny flames that burn there, in light red as sun through eyelid, that I had stayed there and slept beneath your soft pulse, forgetting everything, the map of lines on my palm, the way I went up in a tress of flame and extinguished in the water below, teeming with salmon and coal. And this next poem, I got my inspiration to write it at the beach, believe it or not. It's called Out in the World No One Sleeps, and the title comes from a Garcia Lorca poem. And the quotes in Spanish in here are from Octavio Paz's poem, San Ildefonso Nocturne. And Mandelbrot, who I mentioned in here, was a mathematician who came up with a lot of weird theories of geometry, just to gloss the surface. But it's called Out in the World No One Sleeps. Faithless as we are, even the stars refuse to burn. Evening is caught and shattered into ripples as I wade in, my body distorted in the clasp of surf, colonies of foam collecting around me. Fish flutter in its gravity, slow pool, trapped by formula, unsolvable ritual. Consider silence as liturgy, the cut of surf into sand, slow symmetrical whirls illegible. At the arcade, reflections ghost over the screens, eroding pulses of light that shift into patterns, fade and reform, discrete bodies mapped out in circuitry, momentaneous confederaciones de fuego. Driving to the desolation of radio, we look out on an architecture of brilliance, theories of dream work, la cerveza más fina, light cast by neon diadems, nomada geometrias, Mandelbrot's fate realized, pattern as aftermath of numero serantes, convection seeping into expression. Even the skull cap opens only into blank and innumerable circuits, nameless as theorem, geography in which our bodies are erased into clean lines and tablature. As the balconies empty, satellites etch past to the afterlife, dissipating longitudes that glimmer and fade. And this next poem is called Cygnus. And Cygnus is a constellation that's shaped like a swan, so it'll make sense. And there's an epigraph from Rilke, and it's as lovely as a swan on its eternity of unfathomed surface. There are two of them, always silent, hovering on the surface. One lifting itself, wings spanned, seems absorbed in a gesture of love older than instinct. I'd watch them in evening, their glossy orbit taking hours. All summer they went on creating lakes, algae at the bottom composing their dream world, neurons, rosaries, beaded chains of slow green blooms hovering above the mud. When they lift their heads above water, they seem to recognize themselves for an instant in the receding reflection, but continue upward away from it. In Swan Lake, Tchaikovsky traces this loss, Odette losing her body to these intervals, the perfect fourth, the minor second, the A-flat sustained fading like a wake behind the disappearing lovers, the angle open between them growing wider as they slip into distance. I know this because I was there in the cavernous ballet house, too young to read, but absorbed in the body's movement through music, as if it were another element, something that could change soft flesh to wing and flight, dancers craning down in a perfect imitation of grace, which is as close as we'll ever come. My father would lean to me in the dark and whisper the myths in my ear, histories drifting in their own suspension, maps, primitive star charts, the drift of syllables that mouth out narratives, flesh the landscape with color. It's all in the way we fake grace, in patterns and variation, with grief, the simplest form of trajectory. Later in the streets, tunnels of light channeled wind. Rising from the parking garage in our car, I watched the empty ballet house, imagined it as Siegfried's empty palace, Odette transformed, not even pausing to watch her kingdom fall away behind her. Wandering through the sheen of abandoned cities, submerged, shuddering in their own light. For moments I'm a child again, the weight and gleam of all things passing through me, the building's perfect angle and refraction, my shadow caught in their windows bend and shift like a guttering candle flame. October stars torch and burn fading trails across the sky, lamps' halos expanding in the recession. Flowers unfold into light, whispering Latin names to one another, their bloom so like the swan's swift flight from rest, suspension to current. At night they tuck their neck under the wing, close together and sleep among constellations gleaming in the water. In dream they enter slowly into the pond, merging with their own reflection, gliding through what they don't even know is missing. I have one more poem. Thanks for bearing with me for so long. It's called Strawberries. So when you're eating a strawberry over there, you can think about it. Cut open, their cosmologies blooming, striations crystallizing, hollow and glittering like a geode. I've always wanted an explanation of beauty. I find solace in the secret languages of children, petroglyphs, mimetic geometry, a slow tangle of limbs in afternoon light that means more than itself alone. If I were to describe a pool of rainwater in a dark block, ripples blooming outward, shifting centers dissolving, what would it signify? Think cherry trees, April, a hillside covered in their gradual flowering, a bisected lung, white cilia ebbing with a pulse of cold air. Now forget this. Remember your father's name, your disbelief when you found that he had one, its syllables pronounced in secret, beneath your breath until its sounds mean nothing but the shape of his face, his voice speaking. It blossoms in your dreams, a perfect, unpronounceable creed. Thanks.
Thank you all again for coming, and I hope you'll stay around a little bit longer and have something more to eat and drink. And I also especially want to thank our four writers for their reading and for their work over the last several years.